They called me a madman. They said it couldn't be done. They said it was a lost cause. He's just a loser. Couldn't clear a cave full of skeevers. Wow, I'm here to prove everyone wrong. Yes, even you, Todd. I will clear every location in Skyrim and document it here, right on this channel. All 459 locations. But there will be a method to the madness. For one to undertake such an ambitious project, there must be strategy and planning. Things need to be approached at a macro level. Skyrim is a province in the larger continent of Tamriel, a cold and northern place. Inside Skyrim's borders are 9 cities, but more importantly, 9 holds. If Skyrim is divided up into its 9 holds, the locations can be isolated and systematically cleared one by one. By clearing each hold one by one, we not only have a manageable way of tallying the cleared locations, but can also make sure that one is not burned out by such an ambitious undertaking. A location is cleared when a designated boss enemy is killed by the player. First, some ground rules need to be established. Number 1. At no point can I leave the hold I am currently clearing. Number 2. For a location to be cleared, the icon on the map needs to say, well, you guessed it, cleared. Number 3. Only locations containing enemies will be cleared. Number 4. No clearing locations like towns and cities, because they are unclearable, containing friendly NPCs, and therefore will not be counted towards this mission. Number 5. No lollygagging.
No lollygagging.
Now for me to systematically clear each location in each hold, some locations will inevitably be quest locked. These locations will be put on a backlog and will be cleared when the starting point of the quest can be accessed. But before any dungeons can be crawled and bandit corpses be looted, we need a character. Meet Zuko, a young orc banished from his stronghold in the west, looking to reclaim his honor. He specializes in one-handed combat and heavy armor. However, a scar across his face reveals more about his character than we initially thought. A burn of sorts from a freak accident with his most mysterious ability yet, fire. Zuko knows he is nowhere near utilizing his magic at its full potential, so he is reluctant to use it, but he remains curious. Think of him as an aspiring battle mage. Zuko believes his destiny is to get his honor back. The only way to start is by taking Falkreath Hold by storm. The tale picks up just south of Haugen at a makeshift camp alongside a riverbank. Zuko is preparing for his biggest adventure yet. He ponders how many he will kill. He ponders the day he can finally return home to the tribe's stronghold. This is where the journey begins. So here we are in Falkreath Hold. Zuko is level 1 and we are playing on legendary difficulty. I just loaded up the game through the alternative start mod and got all of this free stuff in this sweaty sack. First thing I did was just look at the hold through the map to see the vast area I will be going through and just mentally preparing myself for the adventure ahead. Falkreath Hold is actually one of my favourite areas in the game. It's the starting area obviously when you come out of Haugen, and it just gives me this warm feeling. The visual design, the music, the place is just steeped in nostalgia, a decade worth of memories of going through this area countless times. Ever since the first time I played this game as an 11-year-old. Little did I know the endless amount of pain that was ahead of me. First things first, I made my way over to the nearby Guardian Stones and took the Warrior Stone, as Zuko will be focusing on his one-handed combat early on. As for non-clearable locations like these, I will try to discover them all if I can. Now that's been said, I made my way over to the first location I will clear, Ember Shard Mine. This is the obligatory little bandit mine I'm sure a lot of people do before making their way into Riverwood. Great for getting some early game coin and loot. I quickly took care of the guard at the gate with my woodcutter's axe. I took a sword and made my way inside. This'll be easy. First dungeon in the game, full of low-level bandits, it'll be a breeze. Oh, how I was wrong. These two chums double teams me in seconds. First death. Okay, I needed to rethink my strategy. It was obvious early game was going to be hard. Perhaps the hardest. I had a light bulb moment. Followers! I needed followers. Followers are the perfect distraction for enemies. They run in all tank mode, soaking up all the damage. I run in and get 3 hits. Easy, easy, easy. But, I could not leave the hold I was currently clearing, which left me with only one follower to choose from. Rhea. Now to get Rhea, you needed to be the Thane of Falkreath, as she is the house Carl. So that meant I needed to complete a number of tasks for the Jarl. Inconvenient, I know. So off I went to Falkreath. First Sidgear wanted some Blackbriar mead, which I already had in my inventory. I'm not really sure how it got there, but I wasn't really complaining.
You better. I hate people who waste my time.
Then they wanted the bandit leader dead from Barrow Gulch Mine. Barrow Gulch Mine! Fuck! But maybe it wasn't so bad. An opportunity to clear my first location. An opportunity for Zuko to finally get off the mark. So I made my way over to Barrow Gulch Mine, located in the northwestern area of the hold. Another mine, so I was bursting at the seam with excitement. No matter, I knew there was too many guards to take on all on my own, so I quickly and somehow snuck my way inside to find the bandit leader. What Zuko met inside was the complete opposite of what he was expecting. An orc, but just not any orc. It was Gungus from his very own stronghold. Gungus left Zuko's stronghold only a couple of years before he did. He was somewhat of a childhood bully, his rival of sorts. They had always clashed for the status of alpha male. Zuko wasn't really surprised he had ended up a bandit. This was a fight I couldn't lose. Unfortunately for me, I was still only playing as a level 1 character, and Gungus was decked out in orcish armour, charging at me with a greatsword. Even cheesing with a bow sneak attack wasn't enough. I prayed to Stendhal when I could. Gungus made me his bitch.
Well, must have run off. What do you want? Well, must have run off.
After half a dozen deaths, I remembered something quite important. I had the enemy overhaul mod Revenge of the Enemies installed. This mod basically makes enemies a lot harder. This was as humiliating as the time Zuko got caught jacking off to the lusty Argonian maid. At this moment I thought it was okay to temporarily turn down the difficulty to something a bit more manageable, considering it is Revenge of the Enemies. After God knows how much time, I finally slayed Gungus after lots of potion chugging. It was cathartic. I felt like I'd just beat the final boss of the game. Zuko killed his childhood rival and finally cleared the first location in Falkreath Hold. I looted Gungus's orcish armour. This will do very nicely indeed in the early game. It was considerably better than anything else I had. In all the chaos I also leveled up, taking the first perk in the one-handed tree, and with that it was back to Falkreath. The next step of the Thane quest was quite simple. I just had to help out 3 residents in Falkreath with some miscellaneous quests. You know, nothing too crazy. Chop some wood, sneak into someone's house, and boom, 10 minutes later we were finally the Thane of the Hold. I got this really mediocre sword, but more importantly we had our first follower, Rhea. Life was about to get a lot easier. She was the Robin to my Batman, the Arbiter to my Chief, the Lydia to my Dragonborn. Oh wait, she's a Redguard, which means she's the only housecarl in Skyrim who's not a Nord. I thought that was quite interesting. Probably not. Anyway, it was time to get my revenge on the bandits at Embershard Mine. We slaughtered all of the bandits in minutes. Location number 2 was cleared. I was feeling myself, Mr. Krabs. After that, there was a quick pit stop at Anis's cabin to kill this old hag.
I'm just a poor old woman, dear. No need to trouble yourself with me.
Before I travelled up to Skybound Watch. Skybound Watch. This place was much like Embershard, full of bandits. Me and Rhea were 2 dual-wielding swordsmen cutting through the enemies like butter. This was until we ran into a giant spider. Rhea went down and I started doing this. My only explanation for what you're seeing is that Zuko has severe arachnophobia and seeing this big boy triggered his PTSD. However, with a lot of patience and even more arrows, we made our way out of Skybound, clearing some bandits outside the back door on the way out. Bam! Location 4 cleared. I was finally starting to get the ball rolling. In the past 30 minutes of game time, I also managed to level up twice to make Zuko a terrifying level 4. I put all of my points into heavy armor one-handed. As I went through Helgen, I needed to start strategizing once again. If I was to efficiently do this, not wasting my and more importantly your time, I couldn't just run around Falkreath like a headless chicken. I was a merely level 4. There was no way I could go waltzing on into the biggest and baddest dungeons on such a high difficulty with such a low level character. I needed to grind some levels, and the best way to do that was by clearing some of the smaller, less intimidating locations. So that's exactly what happened. I cleared some of the most unimpressive caves imaginable, but a level up of heavy armor dampened the wound. Ancient Ascent. Unfortunately, no dragon was to be found, as I believe dragons are only unlocked after the Western Watchtower quest, which we obviously haven't done. This made this Dragon Soul absorption all the more confusing for young Zuko, who was questioning what exactly was happening to him. Nonetheless, it counted as another cleared location, so we were happy. So now I'm going to speed up the footage as we clear some of these kind of nothing locations. I can pretty much effectively summarize this as a genocide of the wildlife population of Falkreath, as I killed more Spriggans than I've ever killed before. Although it does kind of make sense, this is Falkreath and the whole idea of Spriggans is that they're bug-like tree hybrid bush people? I don't know. I got 2 level ups which resulted in me unlocking some more dual wielding damage and some more destruction damage. Zuko was finally turning into the more versatile character I always wanted him to be. I also managed to snag an orcish sword, which meant Zuko was turning into a full kit wanker. It was going to be the best piece of loot I'd found at this point, which shows how slow things have gone since we stole Gungus' set of orcish armor back in Bile Gulch Mine. Anyway, I just wanted to take this opportunity to say when I was recording this part of the footage, I was having a bit of a panic because I was stupidly thinking about how I forgot to check if anyone had actually done this challenge on YouTube before me. But I decided to push on because I think I am successfully putting my own spin on things, right? Yeah. And if no one has done it before, it just confirms that I am a creative genius who will soon have copycats coming at me at every corner.
Shut the fuck up, I will fucking laser you with alien fucking eyes and explode your fucking head.
We're going to pick up at Moss Maven Cavern, where I discovered this lost soul named Valdir, who was conveniently sitting outside. He was willing to follow me for the price of helping him clear this cave, and I thought I hit the jackpot. Another follower to help Zuko conquer Falkreath. I just had to leave this cave until last. Unfortunately, the game outsmarted me and Valdir wouldn't follow. Damn you, Todd, you outsmarted me again. So reluctantly, I decided to go inside and surprise, surprise, more Spriggans. At this point, I would rather take bloody dwarven gyros than fucking health-sucking tree huggers. Regardless, with Valdir's help, Moss Maven was cleared and we made our way to our next location. Next up was Glemoyle Cavern and Kill Cam! This place was full of witches, which seems to be somewhat of a theme in Falkreath after Anissa's cabin. I snuck in initially with my bow, which really isn't Zuko style, but I needed to use everything to my advantage, as mages really are my Achilles heel in this game. I was kinda fearing the worst, because I thought they would all start ganging up on me. But the level design actually saved me in that respect. The dungeon spiraled off into 3 directions with 2 enemies each way, so this place was quite straightforward. I also found an orcish war axe, which meant Zuko was very happy with himself. I needed to be careful because I didn't want Rhea thinking I was an orcish nationalist or something. After all, she was doing most of the work for me. Luckily, the companion system in this game isn't that deep, so I had my Redguard bullet sponge for as long as I wanted. After 5 minutes of Wicked Witch whacking, that was another location cleared. Next on Zuko's bucket list was Knife Point Ridge, and I just want to apologise for the pathetic gameplay you're seeing now. It is quite funny watching the game's AI slowly try to deal with my Obi-Wan-like positioning. This was a fairly generic bandit camp. Like Biogulch, it had a bandit chief waiting inside for me. Unfortunately for the chief, Team Zuko didn't play with honour, as Mr. Steelplate got double teamed to submission. The armour was just the upgrade Rhea needed. The lopsided Geo were now 2 walking tanks. I almost wanted to take the steel plate for myself because goddamn, it just might be one of the best looking armour sets in the vanilla game. After the photo shoot, it was time to level up and take our first point in archery. I don't see Zuko as using bows too often in the future, but I think crossbows might be a good fit once I can find one. Regardless, knife point was cleared, and we were off to do something a bit more ambitious. After doing nothing but caves and bandit camps for the past dozen locations, I thought it was time to clear something a bit more substantial. So I opened my map and put a marker down for North Shriekwind Basin. I believe this was the first proper Nordic ruin of the hold, so I was curious how Zuko would fare against the Draugr. Unfortunately, there was no Draugr to be found inside. Instead, a vampire was waiting for me. Now, vampires are some of the most difficult, annoying enemies in all of Skyrim, so this location was going to turn into quite the grueler. Luckily, I could still entertain myself by getting Rhea stuck in traps. Yes, viewers, this is my humour level. Shortly after, I was treated to this beautiful reveal of the cavern's almost Colosseum-like design. These little visual features always make locations like these more unique, as it just makes it stand out amongst a huge number of other dungeons and contributes to Skyrim still having this fresh feeling after all of these years. I dispatched the skeletons on my way up before finding this really weird closet full of boots. I'd never seen such a weird collection of items. The person living here was either Quentin Tarantino or someone else with a weird foot fetish. Towards the end of the ruin, it was face-off time. A master vampire waited Zuko and Rhea. Now, confession time, I had already done this dungeon twice before this point, and both times I died to the master vampire before my game crashing and my footage being corrupted. So I kind of knew what I was getting into. On my third attempt, which you are watching now, I had this crazy idea to paralyze the master vampire with my bow, so I could then run in and get some free hits. However, that idea didn't exactly go to plan. I'm just going to let you watch the footage roll. What preceded was a fight I wasn't proud of, another fight using my companion as a meat shield. But I had no choice, this guy would kill me in seconds if I got close. I managed to trap Rhea on the other side of the gate, and after about 5 minutes of this kind of gameplay, I finally swooped in to get the kill. In the final room of the ruin, at last I came across a Draugr. Unlike the last fight, this was quite anticlimactic as I just sneaky bowed him. Zuko got confused by another word wall, I leveled up my archery and boom, that was North Shriekwind Basin cleared. My reward for my efforts was this epic view of the hold. Zuko used this moment to reflect on his journey so far and look forward to returning to his home with his honor back. This gave him motivation to soldier on. Unfortunately, there was no time to enjoy the moment. We had a hold to clear. Below the viewpoint was South Shriekwind Basin, and this was basically an outside area with some skeletons and Draugr that led to a shortcut halfway through the dungeon we just did. So I guess that's another location cleared. Then it was time to head north. Brittle Shin Pass. Brittle Shin Pass boiled down to exactly that. A pass through the mountain. It was largely uneventful apart from fighting this appropriately named Death Priest. I booked him in for his own funeral and that was another location cleared. Bloated Man's Grotto. No pun intended, but this place was just bloated. I just can't come up with any other description of this place other than the fact that it does sound like a subtitle for the next Pirates of the Caribbean movie. Too many Spriggans, I'll leave it at that. Cleared. Cracked Tusk Keep was up next and I swear these location names are getting silly. Full of orc bandits, which meant Zuko quite enjoyed making his way through this place. He thought there was a special place in hell for orc stowaways like these lot. This was definitely one of the more smaller forts in Skyrim, and this resulted in me clearing this place in no time. I put a point into destruction and made my way to Falkreath for only the second quest of this video. Oh, and what's that? A dog on the road? Oh yes peeps, it's time for that quest.
You are exactly what I was looking for!
Zuko and Rhea weren't really sure what to think about this dog that was talking, but the dog offered to take them to a cave that was on their list, so they just went with it. I somehow managed to lose Barbas on the way up to Hamar's Shame. Like, look at this clip. 1 minute he's there, and the next he's not. Just Skyrim things, I guess. Anyway, after Barber said the cave was meant to be full of a cult dedicated to Clavicus Vile, I was kinda disappointed to see that they were just named as regular vampires. Feels like a missed opportunity. Regardless, Rhea sliced and Zuko burned as I made my way through the cave, which got me another level up. This time I picked the Heavy Armor Fit perk, which granted me a 25 boost to my armor rating for wearing a full set of heavy armor. Eventually I found the Dirty Mutt taking on 5 or 6 enemies at once. As I rained fire from above, Rhea and Barbas finished off the final remaining Sunshine delinquents. The Master Vampire's enormous health pool was the only thing delaying the inevitable. Poor guy. Zuko then made a deal with this Daedric prince, which he wasn't particularly happy about. He'd rather wipe them all out, but he had no choice in the matter. As I opened my map to see the cleared icon, I realised how far out this place was. Like, how does this count as Falkreath Hold? I was in the middle of the bloody mountains. I guess it's just one of those in-between locations. But what's this? Barbas was still following me? And the next step of the quest was in the reach? You know what that means? Oh yes, another follower to join my crew, and an indestructible one at that. Staying in the snowy side of Falkreath Hold, we made our way to Southringe Sanctum. There was a obligatory guard outside and whoa, look at T-pose Rhea. I haven't seen a T-pose like this since I played Cyberpunk, and it was a subtle reminder of the buggy genius of Skyrim to do something like this even at the dullest of moments. Oh, Bethesda never change. We made our way inside to find this massive cave full of angry College of Winterhold dropouts. I feared the worst. Mages were always undeniably a bitch to deal with. it was really time to see how dangerous we were as a trio. Orc, Redguard, Dog. Not the most typical of RPG parties. Thankfully, things went pretty smoothly. I rescued this NPC that abandoned her child and had second thoughts. The leader of the coven was called Bashnag, another orc. Zuko had no problem sending him to the Shadow Realm though. He didn't know him, just another faceless victim on his way to clearing Falkreath. To top it all off, I found this lovely dwarven bow in this boss chest. To be honest, this was actually annoying because I just found an orcish bow on my way to this dungeon. I leveled up and this time taking a point in combustion before opening my map and seeing this sweet cleared location icon. Next up was Bloodlet Throne, and just by the name of this place I knew it was going to be full of vampires. There was also gargoyles, which I thought was quite weird. Oh look, another level up. I took Defiance from the heavy armor perk tree. Nothing else really happened here, just lots of vampire killing. Demon killing, if you will. The next location to be cleared was Haldir's Cairn, and I've been avoiding this one for a while. I just really hate ghosts in Skyrim. They're just awkward to fight and the voice acting is so annoying. So I'm gonna speed things up. Nothing crazy was happening, you know, the standard clear, until slam. I heard the gate close behind me. I was trapped in the boss room without my followers. This was going to be my biggest test since I fought Gungus in Bile Gulch Mine. Haldir came at me like,
I'm gonna put some dirt in your eye.
and I came at him like,
You'll get your rent when you fix this damn door!
I'm just gonna let this fight play out. At first I used this pillar technique and it worked out pretty well for me. His health was draining surprisingly quick. That was until he summoned loads of replicas of himself that gave me flashbacks to the Crystal Sage boss fight from Dark Souls 3. Thankfully, they actually went down pretty easily. And yeah, I'm pretty proud of my performance in this fight. Yeah, I chugged a lot of health potions, but I survived. I thought I was fucked without my followers, but I did it. It's just funny that I was able to do it with basic level destruction. And just look at this reward. Definitely a cool enchantment, but I won't be able to use it, and that was Haldir's Cairn cleared. Next up was another location I had been putting off for a while based off my last Skyrim playthrough, where I absolutely got abused by some mages. I'd actually been down this side of Falkreath before in this video, so I do feel a bit silly coming back this way. It kind of displays the lack of planning for this trip. Alas, as I rocked up to find this guard outside doing what I can only define as some sort of intimidation technique, which immediately failed after he tried to flee after only a couple seconds of combat. Raya put him down and we went inside.
Well done. They never knew what hit them.
Speaking of Raya putting things down,
Well done indeed.
shortly after, I almost walked straight into this fire trap. The mages had gathered all of this flammable goo on the ground, and above Zuko's head hung these fire pots. All of the mages mustered at the other end of the corridor. What ensued was a battle of epic proportions. Eventually, the Skyrim equivalent of Mystery Incorporated beat the first batch of spooky mages. We moved forward to the next room where I spotted even more fiery goo. I remember these things being particularly lethal and higher difficulty, so I was determined to avoid them at all costs. 2 minutes later, yep, I died to the flammable goo. And that meant I had to go through the entire dungeon again. Nice. After all of that, the final boss room was actually quite underwhelming. Unsurprisingly, there was more fiery goo, which Rhea just tanked. The best trick the Spellmaster had up her sleeve was conjuring a flame Atronach. In the end, she was no match for the triple team trifecta of Zuko, Rhea and Barbas. I was rewarded by a fire breath word, which I guess was quite fitting considering all of the fiery goo littered throughout the dungeon. Zuko still didn't know how to react to these glowing walls with funny writing, but somehow he felt himself getting more powerful through these walls. It was unexplainable for him. Sunderson Gorge was cleared though, which meant we were close to endgame. Next up, we marched east to one of the more unique locations in Skyrim, a location I had to swim to. This process really made me excited about the possibility of fishing in these waters. Anyway, again, this is a location that shows off Skyrim's strengths. Ilianalta's Deep is the fort that had collapsed and was subsequently submerged into the lake. It's another example of a location that just puts a spin on what would otherwise be a bog standard fort we've seen 100 times before in Skyrim, and it really added a lot to my clear. As I went through the location, it was cool to see how the water interacted with the level design, as well as aesthetic things like leaks bulging through the cracked walls, the sound effect of the water breaking through, and the more dynamic things that interact with the level design, like this room, which is completely flooded, which meant I had to engage in a ranged only battle with this necromage. It doesn't sound like much, but it makes a big difference considering when you have so many locations in Skyrim. I feel like Neo, the way I was dodging these ice spikes. And Skyrim was the real life Matrix for me. Eventually, I took down the mage and boom, that was Ilianalta's Deep cleared. I used 2 level ups here. I unlocked Furious Strength from the one-handed tree and Long Shot from the archery tree. From there, it was back down south. Pinewatch was my destination, but not before I could bask in the glory of the northern lights Skyrim often displays on its typical wintry night. However, there was no time to look in awe, as Zuko still had a job to do. Pinewatch is another one of those sneaky Skyrim locations that isn't really what it seems. From the outside, it looks like another sleepy Skyrim inn. But my suspicions aroused when a lonely bandit thug was hiding in the basement. We quickly murdered him before Barbas did the dog equivalent of a teabag. But what's this? A not so subtle button that moves a bookcase revealing a secret passage? Oh, go on then, you naughty, naughty Skyrim. Pinewatch proceeded to be a quick, standard bandit location, not too different from the first ever location I cleared, Embouchard Mine. And by clearing this, it brought Zuko full circle. I had cleared almost every location in Falkreath Hold, but before I reveal the final location I will clear, I need to make some clarifications. Yes, Skyrim experts, technically I have not cleared all but one location, but that is no fault of my own. Okay, let me talk you through it. Number 1, Fort Newgrad. I cleared all the enemies in this place but couldn't get a cleared icon, so I did some digging and I believe it's bugged and has something to do with the fact that it is a Civil War questline location. Number 2, Ancestors Glade. Again, a similar situation with this place. I cleared it, but nothing seemed to happen with it. I think it's something to do with it being a Dawnguard quest location. Number 3, Twilight Sepulchre. This is completely quest locked. I couldn't get inside because of course it is part of the Thieves Guild quest line where you get the skeleton key. As I mentioned at the start of the video, these non-clearable locations will be cleared at a later date when the quest can be accessed. That leaves us with the mother of all Falkreath locations, the dungeon where every Skyrim player pops their ancient Nordic cherry. A place so revered, its layout is etched into the very walls of my brain. Yes, I am of course talking about Bleak Falls Barrow. There was no better place to finish the first leg of this journey. So off we went on our final pilgrimage of chapter 1. The walk up the iconic steps is still as striking as ever. But before any dragonstones can be found, golden claws be looted, we must say goodbye to our loyal companion. The goodest of boys, Truly Zuko's best friend.
Alright then. We'll get together later.
Yes, my friends, we are letting go of Barbas. You may have realised he's been far too overpowered, and I find the best way to go through the final location is just with Rhea to make it a bit more challenging. I went inside and started off the clear with some stylish kill cams, and things went pretty smooth for a while. Completed the puzzle, burnt some skeevers, killed a giant frostbite spider. Zuko didn't even give the skeezer a chance to run off with the claw. The Draugr were tough though. Their shouts were something Zuko had never encountered before. Some careless play meant I let my guard down and got killed from behind. A truly avoidable death. Back to the start of the dungeon, I guess. This wasn't going to be the walk in the park Zuko and Rhea expected, so through the dungeon we went again.
Few moments later.
I was a lot more careful this time around. These death warlocks were the most dangerous because of their summoning abilities. Revenge of the Enemies was finally showing its teeth. Frost breath, fire breath, cyclone. Zuko knew he needed to find the source of their power after he was done in Falkreath. Their mysterious power had been linked to these giant word walls he had been finding throughout his adventure thus far. Eventually, I made it through the first leg of the dungeon. I entered Bleak Fall's sanctum. The perfect setting for a final battle. What awaited Zuko and Rhea was a Draugr White Lord, an all-powerful shouting and summoning boss with a fat health bar. If you ever wanted to find out what would happen if an immovable object met an unstoppable force, this was it. The fight didn't start off well. He summoned two spongy bone men and used mysterious power draining abilities to drain my health almost half straight out of the gate. My initial strategy was to deal with the bone men first to isolate the boss himself. But as soon as I brought one down, Rhea was knocked down, meaning both enemies were aggroed onto me. I knew I wasn't powerful enough to deal with both. I used a tactical level up to recharge my health, investing in Force of Nature and Clash of the Champions with my 2 spare perk points. I couldn't face this Draugr White Lord alone, head on, so it became a game of cat and mouse. I tried to use my ranged attacks, but this only gave him time to summon more minions. One direct hit on me was melting my health bar like butter. This meant I was burning through my potions way too quickly. I had to run to parts of the arena I had never used before in all of my hundreds of times doing this dungeon, using some really unconventional positioning in the process. Rhea was getting knocked down before I could even get close in to help with my melee attacks. I just kept running, hoping, praying for the situation to change, but it was to no avail. Was I really going to fail at the last hurdle? No. Round 2, I was more prepared. I put all of my focus onto the boss, wiping out over half of his health bar. I drew him out from his arena into a ranged battle while Rhea distracted him. The Draugr merely adopted the darkness. Zuko was born into it, moulded by it. Boom! I quickly checked the map. It was done! As I killed the boss, I cleared the final clearable location in Falkreath and thus had completed the first chapter of my mission. At a modest level 17, all clearable locations upon starting the game in Falkreath Hold had been cleared. It was now time for reflection. You may be thinking, you're basically turning into a jack of all trades character. And yes, you are right. I am like Thanos with all of the Infinity Stones. and when I do get around to using shouts, I will be basically bending space and time. So yes, Zuko is the Thanos of the Skyrim universe, and with the number of things we are killing, half of the population will be wiped out. Unfortunately for us, it won't be with a click of a finger. There was only one hold where we could go next. Thank you to everyone who made it through this video. The pinned comment is about how I should proceed with this. Should I just stop? Should I stream it? Should I continue with the YouTube format? Your time is appreciated.